My name is Court Tompkins. I'm CTO here at IP Configure. In the 25 minutes that we have left, I want to talk to you about everything that's new in the 25.9 release of Orchid. So Orchid 25.9 was released about 2 weeks ago at the end of September. A lot of features packed into this release, so I'm going to move pretty quickly. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A, and we'll hit those at the end if we have time. So we're going to get right into it. Two big new features in Orchid VMS 25.9. The first is a new way to download and export video. So we have a lot of customers who have a need to download large amounts of video, hand that off to maybe a legal department or to law enforcement. And so I've got here an example of sort of the type of requests that we've often heard from customers that drove this new feature that we're going to talk about. Here's this example. Somebody has said, I want to download 12 hours of video across all 13 cameras at store number 14 and then hand that video off to law enforcement. We've had ways to handle that in Orchid VMS in the past, but it involved typically downloading a lot of individual video clips and then looking at those video clips individually. Folks want to be able to download everything all in one go, even huge amounts of video, and view that video synchronized together just like they would in Orchid. So in 25.9, we have solved for that using a new piece of software called the Orchid Offline Player. The Orchid Offline Player really has two major advancements within Orchid that really improves the way that we can export and view large amounts of video. So the first is a new way to stream downloads directly from Orchid recorders. So before 25.9, downloading video from Orchid required what we call a remuxing process, where video had to sort of be combined, staged on the Orchid recorder in VR, and then sit back out to you. In 25.9, we now have the ability to just stream archives out directly with no temporary storage. And that means that we can really handle unlimited number of exports, or sort of unlimited duration. So if you want to export 48 hours of video across 15 cameras from a single NVR, beginning in 25.9, you can do that. Now, depending on your bandwidth, that download might take a long time, but it is possible. Once you get that download out of Orchid, we now have a new standalone offline player application that lets you take this single giant bundle file, we call it a .orchid file, and view that video offline. So you don't need any sort of network connection. You don't need access to your Orchid hybrid site. It just works. So to go into a little more depth about how these bundles work, and we'll hit a live demo here in a second. As I mentioned, there are no practical limits to how much video can be exported. So video is streamed directly, no temporary files, no remuxing, unlimited duration, and unlimited camera counts. And I think most importantly here is that failed or interrupted exports can be resumed. So if your export, if your internet connection drops and you are 90% of the way through a 10 gigabyte download, you can resume that. We've got resuming built into these streaming downloads. The one caveat here for 25.9 is that your Orchid NVR has to remain running that entire time. If Orchid upgrades or you have a power fluctuation at the location where Orchid's running, that download will not be resumable. We're going to fix that in 25.12, but that's the one sort of asterisk around the resume functionality. But in general, these huge offline player exports that are possible, you can resume them. And once I download this big export bundle, or small, depending on the amount of video that I'm getting, it's really easy to share. It's just a single .orchid file. So this .orchid file, it can be shared with a file server, with a USB drive. You can email it however you share video or however you share files. It's just a single file that you can distribute. And again, you can distribute it to folks who might not have access, who probably wouldn't have access to your Orchid VMS system. Again, target use case is really sort of law enforcement, legal, those sorts of folks, although I'm sure there's other applications as well. Ultimately, though, we call these .orchid files to make them easier to track, but they're just zip files under the hood. So if you rename it, you can extract it. You'll see all of your original video in there, along with some metadata about that video that our offline player uses. So here's an example where we are downloading 12 hours of video here in this screenshot. Cool capability in Orchid. So the offline player, once I've made this big download, the offline player is a standalone application that opens up one of these .orchid files containing minutes, hours, maybe even days of video, and lets you play it anywhere. So this Orchid offline player, it's available for Windows, Mac with the older Intel Macs, as well as the newer ARM-based Macs or Linux. This offline player operates autonomously. There's no network connection required. The offline player, you can download it from our website. It's also linked within Orchid, obviously. But yep, here's where you can go to download the offline player from ipconfigure.com. And again, 4 different flavors: Windows, old Macs, newer Macs, as well as Linux. And because the offline player is built on the same user interface code as Orchid itself, it supports really all the same features that Orchid does, the ones that are feasible to support without access to your actual NVRs. So the Orchid camera bag, the stage, audio, dewarping, all of that functionality that you know within Orchid VMS itself, it's also available in the offline player. So to take a look at these mechanics a little bit, I am going to go into Orchid VMS. I've clicked the Save Stage link. And here, let's say I have found a video that I've got the suspicious individual walking around the office with a suitcase. Maybe I want to send this video to property management and say, hey, I don't know what this guy's doing, but I don't want him on the property anymore. So I can share that video across multiple cameras really easily now. So I'm going to go back to 1x speed, and I'm now going to go to the download video icon here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and you'll notice I now have 2 different options I can pick. We can still download individual files directly. This is the way that Orchid has handled exports before, or I have the ability to select an offline player bundle. So if I do that, I can select the players that I want to export, and when I go to click download, I get a single one of these .orchid files where all of the video has been bundled together. Now, based on my selection here, you'll see that I'm only downloading 8 minutes, but with this new offline player, I can go crazy. I could download, if I wanted to, 2 days and 8 minutes. So I'm going to click download, and you'll see that immediately Chrome starts downloading this giant 110 gigabyte file. Based on my bandwidth here, that would take about an hour. So I am going to cancel this because I don't want to wait for that. But just goes to show you there's no limit to the amount of video that we can get out and then share with third parties. So to take a look at the offline player, I'm here on the Linux workstation. So I have just loaded the Orchid offline player for Linux. I am going to click Browse for File. I'm going to go to my Downloads folder, and I have a .orchid file here that I've previously exported. This one's only 280 megs. I'm going to double click on that, and you'll notice that the offline player will load the Orchid stage. It just looks like Orchid, but again, we're not talking to any Orchid site. This is all local to me, and this is based on this big .orchid file that I've downloaded. So I'm going to go full screen here, and kind of all of the functionality that I know about, that I'm used to in Orchid, works in this offline player. So I can fast forward through video. I can grab the timeline bar. I can zoom and scrub around. I can zoom out on this timeline bar, for example. I can rearrange my stage. I can close some of these players if maybe I'm not interested in what's going on here. I've got a camera bag to add those players back. I don't think either of these cameras support audio, but if they're audio or these were 360 cameras, dewarping would be supported. So really, full featured export player, and it allows me to view multiple videos synchronized just like I would within Orchid itself. So we're really excited about the offline player. It solves, I think, a number of issues that VMS users tend to have, primarily the ability to download, those typical law enforcement requests where folks want 24 hours, 48 hours of video. That's now something that's easy to do. And we've also got a player that is sort of easy to use, sort of feature-filled like Orchid is, and works with these downloads, right? Makes it really easy to view this synchronized video together. So that is the Orchid offline player. Big new feature in 25.9, something we're pretty excited about. All of these big new features, we do always kind of tend to look to the future, like what's next for this capability. So we imagine in future versions of the offline player, we think folks might want to export smaller clips from within the offline player itself. So if I've got a 48-hour giant .orchid file from the offline player, maybe there's a 30-second clip that really shows something interesting. It would be cool probably to be able to re-export that. The offline player in 25.9, really just includes video, doesn't include any of the advanced metadata that the Orchid VMS user interface itself makes available. Probably could bundle some of that into these exports as well. We imagine being able to load bundles directly from cloud storage. So rather than needing to, maybe first download this .orchid file from my Microsoft OneDrive account or Google Drive account if I'm, law enforcement, legal, whatever. It would be cool if I could point the Orchid offline player just directly to Google Drive, not have to download it first. The offline player is a desktop application, right? So you'll need to run it on your Windows, Linux, or Mac desktop, laptop, etc. We're not sure what the demand is for mobile apps, right? For Android apps or an iOS app for the offline player. It's definitely feedback we're interested to hear about as people start using the offline player. And of course, there are certainly new customer use cases for this. We imagine that, maybe there's sort of, training and like review and, quality of service type applications for using. Initially, we really are kind of focused on that law enforcement and legal use case, but yeah, we're happy to hear about other stuff as well. All right, so that is the Orchid offline player. First big new feature in 25.12. There's also a few smaller things that I'll talk about here. So Orchid Fusion and Orchid Hybrid, right, the Orchid VMS management servers, they now support 64-bit versions of ARM processors. We've supported 32-bit ARM processors in Fusion and Hybrid for many years. We've supported 64-bit ARM processors in Orchid Recorder and our NVR product for a number of years. But this is the first release where we support 64-bit ARM for Orchid Fusion. Architecturally, that's often called ARM64 or AARch64. So this allows those 64-bit ARM devices to use more than 4 gigs of memory with Fusion. This is a feature that I don't think really anybody cares about other than me, but it is a great capability. A lot of data centers now support ARM-based virtual machines. So for example, I can get a virtual machine in AWS or Microsoft Azure using an ARM CPU. Usually it's a little bit cheaper than that same virtual machine would be if it's based on an Intel CPU because of efficiency and other reasons. So anyway, we're excited about 64-bit ARM. It's something that we're using internally. Not sure how many end users are using it, but it is a capability that's out there. So 64-bit ARM support new in 25.9. Also a lot of small improvements in 25.9. So the Smart Search user interface, when I go to drag an area, like if I want to select and only filter for motion events within some part of my video, when I draw that box, it used to gray out the entire screen. Received some complaints and some feedback from customers that, man, it would really be a lot better if I could just draw the box without graying out the area that I wasn't drawing over top of. So we've changed that. We agree with that. We now have the ability to customize the name of a file when you go to export video to reflect a Orchid server's local time zone. Generally, when we're talking about time within Orchid, particularly for evidentiary purposes, we really like UTC time or GMT time. So that tends to be what we default to, but we've got a lot of feedback about this, and we've heard folks, they want to, a lot of folks would rather have the exports reflect the local time zone, Eastern time, Central time, etc., of the server that they're recording from. A little bit of risk there. So, if your server is connected to an NTP server, the UTC time is always going to be accurate. Whereas if your time zone is off, if you've got an Eastern time server that maybe went out to be repaired and has now been installed in Central time, but still set for Eastern time, that export could be a little confusing if the time zone is wrong. But whatever, you can set that now. You can change your exports to reflect the local time zone. Our motion alert system has been made a little bit more resilient, so you can configure motion alerts to send you a video clip when motion is detected within certain parameters during certain times. Previously, if an Orchid server was not available, but a motion event was detected, the server went down or very poor connectivity, we would still send you an alert, but we would not include the video. So we now have an additional option to be a little more resilient about fetching that video. Fusion administrators can now control a session length. So basically, when I log into Fusion, I stay logged in for about 24 hours until I manually log out. Administrators can now shorten that duration if they prefer. Orchid Fusion introduced a new sort of latest and greatest standalone RTSP proxy in the 25.3 release. 25.9 is the last version that's going to include the old RTSP proxy, sort of this new next generation standalone RTSP proxy and the old embedded RTSP proxy we've been distributing over the last couple of releases, just in case folks had compatibility issues with their third-party integrations with that new latest generation standalone RTSP proxy. Haven't had any feedback, any complaints about that. So we will sunset the embedded RTSP proxy in the next release. And then finally, we continue to kind of make time zones more evident throughout Orchid Fusion, throughout Orchid Hybrid. So the Orchid library in 25.12 now provides some additional awareness around time zones. All right, now the second really big feature in Orchid VMS, the one that we've been excited to talk about, is Orchid AI. So 25.9 is our first release where we have full AI support within Orchid. It's a native capability. It's shipped with every version of Orchid. And as we designed this Orchid AI system, we thought a little bit about kind of what part of Orchid do we want to introduce AI into first. Orchid AI, it's sort of a foundational technology for us. We have this Orchid analytics service that is now running in parallel with Orchid itself that's capable of doing this AI processing. This sort of AI capability is going to find its way into really every single part of Orchid. But in this first release in 25.9, we had to pick the first place to introduce it, and we decided to introduce it as part of the Orchid Smart Search mechanism, right? Interactive video search within Orchid. So from within that Smart Search interface in Orchid, where I can go to review motion, previously it was only motion, draw boxes, instantly filter those motion events by region, I now have the ability to filter for AI events. So this AI search allows Orchid to detect objects in real time. You've got a long list of objects that we can detect. Cars, people, bicycles, dogs, trucks, etc. We'll do a real-time demo of that. But this is a real-time AI search capability, very low latency, almost instantaneous results. So let me go back to Orchid AI here. And I'm going to give you a couple of use cases, a couple of interesting ones. So let's see. I am going to clear my stage and I am going to bring up a camera. As I open up the camera bag, you'll notice that a number of cameras have a sort of an indicator icon, right? This colorful AI graphic around it. So those are cameras on which AI has been enabled, and I know that AI search is available there. So I am going to drag a camera out here to the stage, and I am going to click this AI search icon. You'll notice we've got this colorful icon here in the bottom right. Any camera that's had AI searches enabled on it from within the settings will have that icon. And now I have an interface where I can search for detected objects. So here on the bottom of the screen at my timeline bar, you'll notice I see a lot of recognition events. So I am going to search for, let's say, suitcase, right? We saw in the Orchid offline player, we had a suspicious fella walking around with some suitcases. So I want to see how many other suitcases maybe have been around the building. Maybe I can find that person as well. So yep, this is the same as Orchid Smart Search, right? So I pick the object that I want to search for, and I see little red marks here on the timeline bar every time one of those objects have been detected, and I can use the forward and back buttons here on the timeline bar to jump between those events. So there's that suspicious looking fellow with the suitcase again, and I had these detection events available for the entire recording duration of the camera, of my Orchid system. These events are detected in real time, and then they're saved in Orchid Smart Search database where I can, I can query them and filter them almost instantaneously. Again, these AI search results are built into Orchid Smart Search system, which makes search almost instantaneous. That was a big design goal here. So that suitcase is pretty cool. A lot of different objects that we can detect. This is a list of objects, a list of capabilities that is certainly going to grow with every Orchid release. Our intention is to continue to sort of enhance and develop additional types of objects that Orchid can find over time. So let's see. In this example, I want to search for dogs. Everybody likes dogs. So here, this is a driveway next to our headquarters here in Norfolk, Virginia. and I'm searching for dogs, and this is a great way to identify dogs. And again, this is Orchid AI search working here. All right, let's look at a couple of other use cases. So again, I'm looking at these cameras here where I have Orchid AI enabled. Here is a little hallway between our headquarters building and a business on our campus. So let's say I am interested in just searching for people who have come through this hallway. I can do that. I'm filtering for these motion events. You notice I've got some people back here sort of walking inside that other area. Maybe I'm not interested in that. I only want to see people walking through this hallway. And so I can draw a smart search region, just like we can filter for motion events. I can also filter for these Orchid AI events. So now I'm detecting just people just within this region I've drawn. And if I jump between these motion events, I will find people walking up and down this hallway. So we can get more precise. We don't just have to look for people. Let's say maybe I have a report of somebody with a backpack, or maybe we've got some rules here where we don't want folks taking backpacks into this area. Search for backpack, and I found somebody 10 days ago wearing a backpack. I can pick other objects as well. So let me search for handbag. Maybe we've got somebody with a handbag in this hallway. Let's see here. Searching for handbag. Let's see. No handbags, but we did have a backpack. All right. Let's see. I'll give a couple more use cases here. We've got a camera out back on one of our dumpsters. So let's say, for example, we have a big problem with illegal dumping, right? People using the dumpster here on our property when they shouldn't be. So I could do a traditional motion-based search and just say, show me motion here in front of this dumpster. I'm going to get a lot of results, right? So there's a truck. Maybe I'm interested in that, but I'm going to get maybe wildlife. I'm going to get folks just walking in front of this dumpster. I'm going to get bicycles, things that I don't necessarily care about. So this is another great use of Orchid AI. I want to know trucks, right? I want to know, hey, what are the trucks backing up to the dumpster? Because those are probably the folks who are illegally dumping. So here in this case, I've filtered for truck. I've drawn a box just around that dumpster, and I can see any sort of trucks that are near this area I've filtered for. So everything here looks pretty legitimate. Let me go overnight, see if anything's happening there. That's a food truck servicing an activity near the building. I'm going to go forward. Yeah, that's another food truck. So again, I'm just filtering for trucks, and this makes it really easy for me to only find the sort of video that I'm interested in. So thankfully, it's a lot of food trucks. Haven't seen any illegal dumping. There's the truck unloading the dumpster. So that's one use case. We're going to hit just one more use case here. Let's see. We've got a coffee house on the other side of the campus. So a lot of activity in front of this area. Let's say I've got some issues with bicyclists, or I just want to identify bicyclists who are on campus. I've searched for bicycle. Actually, no, I've searched for all objects plus bicycle. Change this to only show bicycles. So here we are instantly identifying bicycles within the scene. So like I said, a lot of different objects we can search for. We're going to go back to that backpack query. So let's see if there's anybody with a backpack walking around the coffee shop. I think there should be. Yeah, there's a fellow with a backpack. There's another backpack. There's that guy with a backpack. Let's see, let's go back to the 11th. There's a bicyclist with a backpack. There's somebody with a backpack, another backpack. So yeah, right. So those are the use cases. Again, it kind of integrates with Smart Search. It works with that region search, bunch of different object types that we can detect. So that's kind of the usage of Orchid AI search. I'm going to try and pick up the pace here as I think we're running out of time. In terms of the technologies that Orchid AI is built on, it's really designed to be sort of open and scalable. Like I mentioned, it's really a foundational technology for us. It's something that we're going to continue to expand. Orchid AI is built on the Onyx open source artificial intelligence ecosystem. We're leveraging what are called YOLO models, you only look once models. So these are the models that allow Orchid to detect and define certain types of objects. Most importantly, we are able, but we don't require NVIDIA GPUs for GPU-based acceleration. And all of this is for what we've seen in 25.9, all standing on the shoulders of Orchid and Orchid Smart Search, that smart search technology that we introduced several years ago. So we've got here Orchid AI. It can run with a CPU. It can fly with a GPU. So Orchid AI by default will use just your CPU for all of this AI processing, and a typical legacy NVR system will have capacity for maybe 1 or 2 Orchid AI streams. So I can enable this AI search capability on 1 or 2 cameras. However, if you have a GPU installed in your server, and it needs to be an NVIDIA GPU installed in a Linux server with what NVIDIA calls a compute capability greater than or equal to 7.5, we've got all this info on our website, then you can install a GPU support package with Orchid. It's got the same sort of versioning nomenclature as your Orchid system, and once you get automatic updates set up on your Orchid system, this GPU package will automatically update as well. Once I install this GPU package, Orchid will use GPU acceleration to provide Orchid AI search results. And a standard, what we call one of our Tiger servers, say an i5 CPU, can support 16 or more AI streams with GPU acceleration. That being said, Orchid AI is engineered to never affect video recording reliability. Orchid AI runs as a companion process to the main VMS, and it runs at a slightly lower priority. So even if you overload Orchid AI, your AI search sort of recognition frame rate might start to drop, but it's always going to sort of take a backseat to the main VMS. At no point do we want our AI search capabilities to affect your system's ability to do its most important job, which is record your video. All right, so here's an example legacy use case. We're not going to actually look at the video, but IP Configure, we have a QSR customer who's got one of our older SteelFin servers. It's about a 5-year-old server. It's an i7 CPU from a number of years ago, and in a prototype installation, they're set up with capacity for about 4 or 5 of their outdoor cameras where they're really interested in this AI search capability. They've been able to set that up still using CPU accelerated Orchid AI. So GPU not necessarily required for small numbers of cameras on a legacy NVR, but obviously if you want to get AI available on a lot of your cameras, you're going to need a GPU. All right, so if you do want to add a GPU to an existing NVR, couple of important things that we have to keep in mind, folks have to keep in mind. The biggest consideration for your average hardware NVR is that GPUs, they're physically large, they're big. So in our SteelFin line, we have SteelFin AI servers available for folks interested in upgrading their NVR. But for most configurations, our servers, and I think most NVR owners, going to want to look at a low profile card. So the NVIDIA GTX 5060 is what we're shipping with our SteelFin AI servers, and that's probably a good fit for most folks. It's this card here in the bottom. It'll fit in a 2U chassis. It'll fit in sort of a space constrained environment where your typical GPU, it's a big card, won't fit in an NVR size server. Another GPU retrofit consideration is GPUs tend to be power hungry. So if you're upgrading an existing NVR, you're probably looking at both a GPU and a new power supply. As I mentioned, IP Configure, we have our SteelFin server line. We have turnkey solutions for that, but it is possible to retrofit an existing NVR, add a GPU, get this Orchid AI capability. All right, in terms of tuning Orchid AI and configuring it, by design, there's very little tuning to do. System administrators can define whether they want Orchid to use CPU or GPU acceleration. They can define how frequently the GPU search runs. So basically, if I'm recording at 30 frames a second, maybe I only want to do AI search on maybe at 5 frames a second, or maybe even only every iframe, which would typically be 1 or 2 frames a second. So administrators can have some control over that to try and maximize the number of AI streams that are available on their system. Orchid AI ships with sort of a one-size-fits-all detection model. So the detection model includes all of the different types of objects that we can detect. It's a model that's designed to work well with both CPU and GPU acceleration. We expect in future versions of Orchid, we will begin distributing sort of heavier weight models that might require a GPU, might give you access to more types of detection, maybe slightly better detection performance. But for now, again, it's a single one-size-fits-all model. We're really happy with the performance, both with CPU and GPU AI search. Longer term, Orchid AI has been designed for customized trainability. So we imagine being able to distribute models to fit specific use cases, right? We've got some prototypes for folks with maybe health and safety use cases where they want to detect people on heavy equipment and detect whether they're wearing a safety vest or not wearing a safety vest, wearing a hard hat, not wearing a hard hat. We do have those sorts of models that we're using internally that we expect to be able to offer folks in the future, as well as customized training. So that's all future stuff. Now, in terms of pricing, Orchid AI is available at no additional cost to all of IP Configure's Orchid hybrid customers. So if you're using our cloud services, you get access to this Orchid AI search capability, what we're calling Level 1 AI, at no additional cost. It does require a new license. That's sort of a back-end detail. So over the next 10 business days, we'll be rolling out updated AI licenses to all of our customers that have NVRs within our hybrid services. We'll also be scheduling time with you to talk with our operations team, to talk about your AI deployment strategy, make sure that your servers can handle the number of AI streams that perhaps you'd like to activate. If you are not an Orchid hybrid customer, you can still access Orchid AI. You can download Orchid from our website. If you are using Orchid in a trial mode, or if you're in Orchid Fusion, you can enable Orchid AI on one camera. In this trial mode, you'll only have 24 hours of events that you can search through. But again, we want everybody to be able to see what Orchid AI is. Now, if you want Orchid AI across multiple cameras and you're a Fusion customer, we're looking at a price point of about $1 per camera a month. So Orchid AI is available to Fusion customers for an additional cost, no additional cost for Orchid hybrid customers. This is our Level 1 AI capability, so this AI search capability. We do expect in next year, we'll be seeing some additional AI capabilities that will be included in that Level 1 AI level, but we're also expecting to have some really advanced AI capabilities, Level 2, Level 3 AI on our roadmap. Those might incur some additional costs. So those additional levels will include things like semantic search, being able to give just like a general Google search type query and have that return AI search results. We have some object tracking and counting that we're working on, attribute classification, event summarization, customized detection models, et cetera. Those are the types of features we'll see in more advanced AI levels in the months and years to come. All right, so future capabilities roadmap, just like we talked about with the offline player, we always like to be thinking about what's next, what are we adding. So in no particular order, I've got these in 3 categories. The first is automation. We think this AI search is a really powerful tool. It's an interactive tool though, and we want to make this Orchid AI data also available in a way that's more automated. So we've been talking about our events, triggers, and action system for a while. That's something we continue to put a lot of engineering resources and R&D into. We expect that to have released in the first half of next year. So this events, triggers, and action system will be what allows us to have a system where administrators can easily say, hey, when a truck pulls up at the loading dock after hours, I need you to send a text message to the store manager and email a video to the SOC, that sort of thing. So that's a big focus for us. We expect to see that early next year. Dashboards and detection statistics, as well as textual synopsis and comparison. That is having Orchid AI, maybe give you a report every day of, hey, what changed, what happened in this camera overnight. That's what we mean by textual synopsis and comparison. Search is always a big focus for Orchid. Sort of ease of use, ease of finding things in Orchid is something we're proud of and something we want to continue to enhance with Orchid AI. In our next release, should be available at the end of this year, we are expecting to have an AI heat mapping capability. Global AI search is also something we're thinking about. So the AI search in 25.9 sort of happens camera by camera. We'd like to also make that Orchid AI search available maybe across the entire enterprise. Attribute detection is also something that we're looking at. So, we've looked at in 25.9 at finding people who are maybe carrying a handbag with a suitcase, with a backpack, but we want to dig a little bit deeper into those attributes. So we want you to be able to query the models to say, show me people wearing a red backpack or a blue briefcase. That's something that's coming soon. And then performance is always a big consideration. We've put a lot of work into making Orchid Smart Search really fast, and that has really lent a lot to the search performance characteristics of Orchid AI, but we've got some additional enhancements that we're planning. So in our next release, at the end of this year, we have some additional hardware accelerated decoding that we're going to do. So the video that we feed into Orchid AI, that H.264, AV1, H.265 data has to be decoded. So there's some additional GPU-based hardware decoding we can do to take that load off of the server, put it onto the GPU. That's something that we're going to look at next year as well as some additional performance optimization. All right, so that is really it in terms of Orchid AI. So yeah, every Orchid 25.9 system has AI built in. If you're an Orchid hybrid customer, you can expect your Orchid hybrid in your recorder systems. As long as we have access to them to push the updates, those will be updated within the next 10 business days if they're not updated already. So if you're one of those folks, you can enable Orchid AI on one of those camera streams, again, within the next 10 business days. Try Orchid out for yourself. If you don't want to wait that long, or if you're not an Orchid hybrid customer, you can download Orchid from our website. Use Orchid AI in trial mode today. So that is Orchid AI. Again, very exciting. As we look to the 25.12 release at the end of the year, I've already mentioned a few of the things that we're looking to see, things that are likely to appear, not necessarily guaranteed, but we're looking to make some additional Orchid AI enhancements, improving the throughput and decoding performance, like I mentioned recently, refining the models, the sorts of object detection models that are distributed with Orchid AI. We do expect we're going to have a heat map capability, so the ability to generate heat maps, not just based on motion, but based on specific object types, right? So if I'm looking at the driveway behind the office and I want to get a heat map of maybe where the bicyclists are going or maybe where the dog walkers are going, I can generate a heat map just out of bicycle detection events or vehicle detection events. So that's something that we think is going to be pretty cool, pretty useful. We also expect to have support for what we're calling a monitor user. Effectively, this is a user in Orchid Fusion or Orchid Hybrid who can do everything that an administrator can do, but is read-only. So we've got a lot of feedback from enterprise customers, or maybe they have IT staff or other managers who they want to be able to monitor and sort of watch their Orchid system, look at the server dashboard, look at server health reports. They don't want those users to be able to change the system configuration. That's where this monitor user will come in. And as I mentioned, events, triggers, and actions, the ability to automate everything that automate all of those results that the Orchid AI search is generating. That's a capability that's going to be available in events, triggers, and actions, and that's something that we continue to work on. It's a big focus for us. So we've got a lot of resources obviously out there. So training.ipconfigure.com, manuals.ipconfigure.com, and support.ipconfigure.com. Those are all available to you. We've got a terrific support team. So if you've got any questions, anything that we've talked about, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to our support team. The phone number here, you can put in a support request at ticket.ipconfigure.com. ipconfigure support, ipconfigure.sales. Very happy to answer any questions you have about the 25.9 release or Orchid AI in general. And as I mentioned, if you are an Orchid hybrid customer, definitely expect to hear from us soon, a notification that you've been upgraded to 25.9 and those Orchid AI licenses have been assigned to you as a hybrid customer. All right, so that's everything we've got in 25.9. Appreciate everybody's time, and hope to see you in the 25.12 release webinar. Thanks, everyone.